All right, so this deep dive, it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's Celebrimbor.
Oh, yeah.
And
The Rings of Power.
it really does feel like one of those stories
Yeah.
ripped from the pages of history and myth.
Right.
We're talking about Celebrimbor the elf, who, with a whole lot of talent
Mm.
and maybe a touch too much ambition, forged the Rings of Power.
Yeah, Celebrimbor. He's a character who really, I think, reminds us that sometimes the pursuit of greatness, can have disastrous consequences.
It's a classic tale, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And a listener sent in an analysis
Okay.
by the Technomage that really caught my eye.
Right.
And they draw this fascinating parallel between Celebrimbor
Okay.
and the story of Faust.
Okay.
You know, the guy who makes a deal with the devil
Right.
for ultimate power.
A Faustian bargain indeed.
Yeah, right.
It's not a literal devil.
Right.
In Celebrimbor's case, of course.
Of course.
But we have Sauron disguised as the benevolent Annatar.
Right.
Whispering promises of, knowledge and power in his ear.
Which, let's be honest, is a pretty tempting offer.
Yeah.
Especially for someone like Celebrimbor.
Sure.
A master craftsman.
Mm-hmm.
Driven by this desire to create something truly extraordinary.
Right.
He wants to leave his mark on the world.
Of course.
And what better way than with these rings?
Yeah.
Capable of incredible power.
Yeah, and that's where things get really complicated.
Right.
Because both Faust and Celebrimbor are blinded by their ambition. They're so focused on the potential of their creations that they fail to grasp the potential consequences. It reminds me of that old saying, be careful what you wish for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Celebrimbor pours his heart into these rings,
Yeah.
believing they can preserve and protect Middle-earth.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, they become something else entirely,
Right.
instruments of control
Yes.
that ultimately tip the scales towards darkness.
It's a tragic irony, isn't it?
It is.
That his very desire to shape the world,
Yeah.
to hold back the tide of darkness, becomes the very thing that empowers Sauron.
Right.
And the rings themselves,
Yeah.
those meticulously crafted symbols of power and beauty,
Right.
they transform into tools of domination.
This is where I find the symbolism of the rings so fascinating.
Okay.
Because they represent more than just power, don't they?
Right.
They embody the allure of legacy, the desire to leave a lasting mark on the world.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to capture something fleeting and beautiful,
Right.
like starlight,
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead, he ends up holding on to something dangerous and corrupting.
And that corruption doesn't happen overnight, right?
Right.
It's a gradual process,
Yeah.
almost insidious.
Yeah.
And you see this reflected in the way that
Right.
those rings eventually bind
Right.
the elves, the dwarves, and the men of Middle-earth
Yeah.
to Sauron's will.
It's so easy to get caught up
It is.
in the magic of it all.
Yeah.
To forget that with each ring forged,
Right.
the one ring gains more power, more control.
does.
It's like a
Yeah.
spider web,
Right.
each strand,
Yeah.
seemingly delicate on its own.
Sure.
But together they form a trap,
Yeah.
almost impossible to escape.
Precisely. And you know what makes Celebrimbor's story
Okay.
so compelling, so tragic?
Yeah.
Is that he's not entirely blind to what's happening.
Right.
There are moments in the show
Yeah.
where you can see the doubt creeping in, the dawning realization that he might be in over his head.
The Technomage actually raves
Yeah.
about how actor Charles Edwards
Yes.
perfectly captures that internal struggle.
He does.
There's this scene
Yeah.
where Celebrimbor hesitates.
Okay.
He's looking from the newly forged rings to Annatar
Right.
with this flicker of suspicion.
Mhm.
You can almost see the gears turning in his head.
Edwards doesn't portray Celebrimbor as naive.
Right.
He's brilliant,
Right.
but also prideful.
Okay.
And it's that pride,
Mhm.
that unwavering belief in his own abilities
Right.
that makes him susceptible to Sauron's manipulations.
Yeah,
It's a stark reminder
it is.
that even the smartest among us
Right?
can fall prey to our own blind spots.
Because deep down, don't we all want to believe
we do.
that we're immune to that kind of manipulation?
I think so.
That we would recognize the warning signs?
Mhm.
That we wouldn't be so easily fooled?
Yeah,
But that's the insidious nature of temptation, right?
it is.
It often comes disguised as something we desire,
Right.
something that appeals to our better nature.
Exactly. And that brings us back
Okay.
to the core of
Yeah.
the Faustian bargain.
Right.
It's never a straightforward deal with the devil.
Right.
It's a slow seduction,
Yeah.
a promise whispered in the ear that preys on our deepest desires
Right.
and our fears.
Like Sauron promising Celebrimbor.
Exactly.
The power to resist the fading of his people,
Mm.
to preserve the beauty of their creations.
Right.
It's a noble goal,
It is.
twisted into something insidious.
It is. Which is exactly how Sauron operates, right?
Right.
He understands the power of manipulation, of using someone's strengths against them.
Right.
He doesn't need to force Celebrimbor's hand.
Right.
He simply needs to nudge him in the right direction to exploit that inherent desire for greatness.
And as viewers, we're left with this agonizing sense of,
we are.
if only Celebrimbor had trusted his instinct.
Right.
If only he had seen through Sauron's deception sooner.
Right.
But then we wouldn't have much of a story, would we?
And what a story it is.
Right.
Because it reminds us that even in a world of elves and dwarves and magical rings, the most compelling struggles are often the ones that mirror our own human frailties.
It's that flicker of recognition that I've been there feeling, you know, that makes these stories resonate across generations.
Absolutely. And it's not just about avoiding deals with disguised dark lords.
Right.
Although that's probably a good rule of thumb.
Hear that, listeners.
Yeah.
No shady contracts for us.
Right.
But seriously, what I find so powerful about this whole Austrian parallel is that it highlights this truth about ourselves.
Okay.
We're all susceptible to that desire for more, you know.
We are.
Even if it comes at a hidden cost.
It's a delicate dance, isn't it?
It is.
That line between ambition and obsession.
Right.
Between creation and destruction. Celebrimbor wanted to leave a legacy to safeguard his people.
Yeah.
And those aspirations weren't inherently wrong.
Right.
It's the path he chose.
Right.
The compromises he made along the way that ultimately led to his downfall.
Makes you wonder, what if there had been someone there to challenge him?
Right.
To question his assumptions. Someone to say, hey, maybe this Annatar fellow isn't all that he seems.
Perhaps. But then again, isolation is often a key ingredient in these Faustian bargains.
Right.
It's in those moments of solitude when we're most vulnerable to our own ambitions.
Right.
That we're most likely to make choices we later regret.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
And it makes Celebrimbor's story even more tragic.
Yeah.
Because he's not just a victim of Sauron's schemes.
Right.
He's also a victor of his own brilliance.
Yeah.
His own relentless drive.
Which, as we discussed, is a theme that feels both timeless and deeply human.
Yeah.
This desire to make a mark on the world, to create something lasting and meaningful.
Yeah.
It's something I think we can all relate to.
It's that shared human experience that makes stories like this resonate so deeply.
Yeah.
Whether you're, you know, a scholar of ancient myths or a newcomer to Middle-earth, there's something profoundly relatable
there is
about the tale of Celebrimbor.
I think the Technomage deserves a lot of credit for highlighting this connection to the Faust legend.
Yeah.
I think it adds a whole other layer of depth
It does.
to Celebrimbor's character. And it reminds us that these ancient stories still have much to teach us about ourselves.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, if this deep dive has piqued your curiosity, I highly recommend checking out the Technomage's full analysis.
Yes.
You can find a link to that in our show notes.
Definitely.
And until next time, keep exploring those deep cuts.
Absolutely.
And may your own ambitions never lead you astray.
Indeed.